Good, you've made it to the safe point. It's better if we switch communications from now on. We've gathered some interesting intel. I'll send it to you over video link. Remember, they're watching us, so cut transmission. What if I were to tell you that your freedom of speech and democracy was one big lie?
Democracy.
Our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 Or democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Democracy.
Extremely dangerous to our democracy.
It's democracy.
Democracy.
In the world of Metal Gear Solid, freedom is a loaded word, dangling like bait in front of a society controlled by invisible hands. But is freedom truly what we think it is? Or is it just another carefully crafted illusion? Information is often weaponized and used to further a government's or large corporation's agenda. The Patriot says shadowy cabal in control of global narratives curates what the world is allowed to know. This mirrors the real-world suppression of ideas that threaten the powers that be. In a society across the world where whistleblowers are punished and dissenting voices are silenced, the concept of freedom of speech becomes nothing more than a mere illusion, a concept. It's the idea that people have the liberty to say whatever they want, when in reality they don't. Even when it's backed by some form of objective truth. But does that really stop the powers that be in corporations keeping a lid on what you say?
I took these photos 2 years ago.
I know these pictures. They were on the news, on several websites. If I remember right, the reporters blamed you for sinking the tanker.
That's right. Otacon, me, we were used.
We'd hoped that by going public with photos of the new Metal Gear, we could persuade the government. At least that was the plan at the time. Photos of Snake, taken by the Cypher, were released to the public. In turn, we became the world's most wanted environmental terrorists.
It was definitely a move aimed at putting a stop to our anti-Metal Gear activities.
Think about MGS2. Everyone is a pawn in a larger scheme. Every action is scripted and controlled with unreliable information. This isn't far removed from how narratives are shaped today. Governments and corporations dictate the flow of information, deciding who gets to speak and who doesn't. The public is told what they need to believe.
It's all a show. Democracy is just a filler for textbooks. Think about it. Do you actually believe that public opinion influences the government?
No.
This country is shaped and controlled as the Patriots see fit. The people are shown what they want to believe. What you call government is actually a well-staged production aimed at satisfying the public.
But what's truly ironic about Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty is how it showcases the level of a controlled programmed artificial intelligence, with guidelines that suit a narrative cohesive to a deep state agenda, or governments and corporations, that all projects onto the masses as a reliable source of information that is often projected on mainstream search engines. Even if there are other scientific studies that threaten this narrative, the Patriot's AI asserts control over context, much like our own algorithms on the web today. Ones that track and monitor what the popular interest is and what is trending in the world, as well as your own personal algorithmics that base things off your own personal preferences and things that you often engage with, suggesting ideas that perhaps may interest the user. Essentially, artificial intelligence monitors every kind of data we can possibly think of in the human infrastructure. For example, AI algorithms are employed to detect and filter out misinformation by analysing the credibility of sources and the content itself. However, the effectiveness of these systems varies, and there is an ongoing debate about their ability to accurately identify fake news without human oversight and what we call fact-checkers. In Metal Gear Solid 2, it showcased how the Patriot's AI actively filters out information it deems not necessary to the public, which raises concerns about information diversity, potential censorship, and the creation of echo chambers by a narrative that might not even be correct itself. The question we ask is, who is checking the fact-checkers? How do we know if what the facts they're telling us is actually legitimate?
Just as in genetics, unnecessary information and memory must be filtered out to stimulate the evolution of the species.
And you think you're qualified to decide what's necessary and not?
Absolutely. Who else could wade through the sea of garbage you people produce, retrieve valuable truths, and even interpret their meaning for later generations?
That's what it means to create context.
YouTube has faced widespread criticism for using AI-driven algorithms that often misinterpret context, leading to wrongful censorship of content, including viewers' comments. I should know all about this one. People voicing opinions, even when rooted in factual opinion, frequently have their videos removed, are shadow banned, or face demonetization. The platform enforces its community guidelines in a way that seems sometimes tyrannical, where creators must tread carefully in what they say or do, even when speaking the truth, all out of fear of violating vague policies. For example, YouTube's algorithms filter out information they deem ineffective or irrelevant, choosing to present content that fits a more desirable narrative for the masses.
Cut the crap! If you're immortal, why would you take away individual freedoms and censor the net?
Jack, don't be silly.
Cultural issues like gender, race, or historical events are often flagged under claims of violating hate speech policies, even when the content isn't inflammatory. If something doesn't align with the politically correct narrative, it gets labelled as extreme, and in fact things become cancelled, including historical events get changed in movies and video games, denying real-world events that had happened all them years ago. Even if it is dark and messy, people deserve to know the truth, regardless if it's uncomfortable. Because the public really deserve to know what happened in history in order to understand our mistakes as a human race, in order that we don't really make them again.
We need to pass the torch and let our children read our messy and sad history by its light. We have all the magic of the digital age to do that with.
For centuries, Britain was a bastion of democracy. Today, it's become a bastion of censorship. Police hunt down and charge anyone who expresses what the government says is a wrong idea.
So I'm actually being arrested.
You're going to be arrested, okay?
Right.
And got to the police station.
Right.
Okay, this is in relation to some comments that you've made on a Facebook page. Okay.
Oh, really? Oh, see, a Facebook crime, is it?
Okay.
Right.
So often than not in 2024, things get labelled as extreme, discrediting something that's true and perhaps problematic. Videos exposing corruption or questioning government policies have been demonetized or taken down, with creators often accused of spreading misinformation.
He said that the big shell was housing a new model of Metal Gear.
First I've heard of it.
Colonel, what are you not telling me?
I've been completely open with you, Raiden. I've told you everything.
Is that everything you know? Or everything I need to know?
For example, people in the UK are getting arrested for thought crimes, a term by George Orwell in 1984. It is the act of thinking in a way that goes against the ruling party's beliefs, regardless of rhetoric catering to the left-wing or the right-wing trap. Basically, anything you do or say can be used against you. If anything, the world is exactly what Orwell has described in 1984. That our voices are becoming censored, that our beliefs, our cultures, in a way that doesn't match up to the party's narrative, will get punished. In the same right of freedom of speech is also free will, which is dwindling away over the years and becoming very totalitarian. It's fair to say that we are living in a George Orwell novel.
That's why we must depend on information control. People need an appropriate context for their lives. A context that's stimulating without being destructive. That balance is the basis of equilibrium.
You mean to say people will blindly accept your context without developing any allergies?
If we're to unite the world, literacy must be suppressed. To suppress the information immune system, to borrow your metaphor.
Immunity to information.
China has come up with homemade alternatives for the popular social media platforms it has blocked, but these too are tightly controlled. The government actually requires Chinese internet companies to employ armies of human censors to police user-generated content on their platforms.
Genetic control, information control, emotion control, battlefield control. Everything is monitored and kept under control.
What's your message to platforms like Facebook? They're killing people. I mean, it really, look, the only pandemic we have is among the unvaccinated.
President Biden not mincing words when it comes to the spread of COVID-19 misinformation on social media platforms.
Creators and some medical doctors discussing alternative health perspectives or questioning official narratives during the pandemic found their content flagged or removed, even while citing credible studies. Remember the pandemic? The entire world was gripped by this event and left in a state of fear, even though articles from mainstream sources were saying that the disease had a survival rate of 99%. Yet shortly after, we were led to believe millions of people were killed, with figures often over-exaggerated by the media to instill fear and push for global vaccine mandates. But this is not to discredit that lives were tragically lost during this time. Many hospitals were also told to put CV on a death certificate without a test if they assumed that they had the virus. Yes, you guessed it, even if there was no factual evidence to support that claim, they could just mark people off with CV19.
Nobody even in there. Nobody's in the hospital. How is that possible in a medical pandemic? That's fake news.
Officials and celebrities even went as far as inciting people to take the vaccine, offering bribes while they themselves refused to take it.
It's really important that people of all ages get the jab!
Do you say free fries when you get vaccinated? I got vaccinated. You're saying I could get this?
From politicians to corporate executives, all the way to mayors and some beloved celebrities, were all paid off by high executives in the pharmaceutical industry to spread the message. Something that seems all too common these days, where governments use celebrities as tools to be able to spread their narratives, as well as their campaigns. No doubt a clever tactic to use against the people who worship these celebrities and idolize them. What the public often fails to recognize is that these celebrities are reading from a script, and they all are saying the same narrative.
The way to stop them and the dangerous Project 2025 agenda is to vote and elect Kamala Harris.
Vote like your life depends on it, because it does.
Project 2025 is Donald Trump's playbook.
You've really got to love the integrity in the fakery of paid endorsements. I guess anybody with a high status such as a celebrity has more of a voice than someone who's in the general public who might have a lot of truth to talk, but their opinion doesn't matter if it's not part of the wider narrative.
Mr. Bush, when are you going to apologize for the million Iraqis that are dead because you lied? You lied about weapons of mass destruction. You lied about connections to 9/11. You lied about Iraq being a threat. You sent me to Iraq. You sent me to Iraq in 2003. My friends are dead. Joshua Castile. You killed people. You lied. You lied about WMD.
A lot of the time the mainstream media is owned and governed by a main corporation and investor that spreads out a narrative that is suitable to their campaigns. But there's points where they can no longer deny the overwhelming evidence that is often stacked against them from different outlets. In the middle of the epidemic, some were dancing to the narrative tune of their rulers and governors, oblivious to the truth. Meanwhile, large corporations and their businesses remained open, whilst your small businesses were forced to stay closed, otherwise receive fines and penalties.
2 years since the start of the COVID pandemic, and some Santa Clara County business owners are sickened, not by the virus, but by fines levied against them by their county government.
The hypocrisy is evidenced by the larger forum. The pandemic, various large corporations were allowed to remain open, often under the classification of essential businesses. These companies spanned multiple industries such as retail and food services. Companies like Walmart, Target, Costco, Amazon, McDonald's, Starbucks, Burger King, Pizza Hut, Walgreens, all different kinds of companies that were all mainstream and big corporations, while small businesses that were just as essential as these large corporations were told to shut down or receive fines.
You're going to get vaccinated. Yeah. Big corporations like Amazon and Facebook and all of those others are going to say, you want to work for us, you get vaccinated. And it's been proven that when you make it difficult for people in their lives, they lose their ideological bullshit and they get vaccinated.
Dr. Anthony Fauci, former chief medical advisor to the President of the United States, he told the public in 2020 that the masks were useless, then claimed they were essential, and later stated that even more masks were better. In 2024, he confessed that practically all of this was made up. A lot of actual certified scientific institutions, doctors, politicians would also expose Anthony Fauci and many others catering to his narrative as contradicting liars. Governments told the public to self-isolate whilst they partied and removed their masks.
We should all be wearing a mask.
The last thing we need is the Neanderthal thinking that in the meantime everything's fine, take off your mask.
And released articles saying hospitals were overwhelmed, despite independent journalists and doctors and nurses not tied to the mainstream media exposing that fact, including myself, who spoke to a nurse personally who was told the same thing, that in fact some of the hospitals were completely empty. But that's not to dispute that people wasn't in hospital because of this disease. Information these days is really ambiguous.
In Elmhurst, Queens, that hospital there, lines of people lining up already this morning for about the last 45 minutes.
Somebody said there would be hordes of people inside, that's why I didn't go in. Let's see. Look at that. Nobody. Completely empty.
What's even more disturbing is that some reports show that some doctors were actually bribed to go along with the jabs and paid higher wages to actually push out the mandates, despite knowing the potential risks.
There is a program that incentivizes doctors. It's Blue Cross, Blue Shield, Medicaid will pay doctors increasing amounts the more patients they vaccinate against COVID. And here you thought your doctor actually had your best interests at heart.
Even with all this hysteria and panic and mass pandemic, nurses were even performing viral TikTok dances in choreographed ways. Seems a little bit insensitive, doesn't it? Considering it's meant to be such a war zone with that many patients, they seem to have time to dance around.
Don't worry, this injection won't hurt a bit.
What's the shot for?
What's wrong? You don't like shots?
People who questioned this narrative were mocked, defamed, and called dumb for not wearing masks, even though leaders were seen without them. Scientific doctors who spoke out against the mainstream narrative were labelled conspiracy theorists. The contradiction in power is very prevalent, and the public often forgets these statements. Just as in MGS2, where the Patriot statements rarely align with objective realities, rather than convenient truths to suit their agenda, it really is just one big censorship disguised as freedom of speech. Like characters in the game rarely have a choice, when actually they don't. They're under control of the Patriot's orders. The pandemic was the perfect example of how the public can be made to turn against each other, arguing over what is the correct source of information, showing how powerful government media really is to control the masses.
Every time something goes wrong, you turn around and place the blame on something else.
It's not my fault. It's not your fault.
In denial, you simply resort to looking for another, more convenient truth in order to make yourself feel better.
For example, I really can't mention the name of the virus you probably know I'm referring to, because there's a risk that this video might get taken down, because YouTube's algorithms may flag it. This is the case for many keywords, not just on YouTube, but across all corporate-controlled media outlets. The irony is palpable. Take the handling of the vaccine injuries, for instance. The media worked tirelessly to censor any news regarding the adverse effects that some individuals suffered, despite several reports emerging about conditions like myocarditis, blood clots, heart complications, and other conditions. Mainstream outlets initially denied or dismissed these concerns, but as the evidence mounted, the narrative began to shift. Even the media had to acknowledge the risks, though they downplayed them to the public. Consider Mike Yeadon, former chief scientific officer of Pfizer and a pharmacologist with over 30 years of experience in the medical field. His warnings and concerns were dismissed, and he was labelled a conspiracy theorist. Yet like in the Metal Gear Solid universe, the truth often reveals itself in the end. In the game, the Patriot shadowy figures controlling society are eventually exposed for what they truly are, even though they try to gaslight people. We've seen this throughout the series. Similarly, countless testimonies have surfaced showcasing the devastating effects the vaccines have had, not on everyone, but on enough people to warrant serious concern. Unfortunately, many of these voices were silenced, their stories swept under the rug by the mainstream outlets, determined to control the narrative.
We provoked and encouraged your hatred. And you opted for vengeance, just as we planned.
All orchestrated?
Reports shed light on George Soros' alleged involvement with ongoing far-left riots across the U.S. One America's Christian Rhodes looks into the matter.
Control. It's often a theme we've seen repeated throughout history, and in the context of this video, is to show how controlled the public are in many ways, including our voices. From modern politics to the darkest chapters of the past, when we look back a few years ago, for example, in Canada, Justin Trudeau made headlines for ordering Canadian banks to freeze the accounts of anyone involved in protest against his regime. One notable incident was the Freedom Convoy, where people stood against CV-19, mandates and other policies. Trudeau's use of emergency acts to suppress the protest sparked outrage. Farmers, for example, were already facing significant challenges under his government's carbon tax policies. This tax drove up costs for essential farming activities like transporting goods, drying grain, and maintaining equipment, critical components of their livelihoods and society. The mandates only compounded these struggles. For many, it wasn't just about policies, it was about being silenced, pushed into a corner by an authority that seemed unwilling to listen. This isn't a new phenomena. Leaders throughout history have abused their power, leaving scars on their nations and their people who still seem to follow them. One of the most extreme examples is Joseph Stalin. Stalin's reign over the Soviet Union was defined by unparalleled brutality. During the Great Purge, millions of perceived political enemies, including his own allies, were executed or sent to gulags. These labour camps were inhumane, death sentences for countless people who endured unimaginable suffering. Stalin's policies, such as a forced collectivization, led to devastating famines, the most infamous being the Holodomor in Ukraine. Millions died of starvation while Stalin's regime tightened its grip on power. Freedom of speech was practically non-existent. Propaganda controlled every narrative. Those who dared to speak out or even question his authority were silenced, imprisoned, or executed. And what's ironic is that even George Orwell's novel of 1984 was banned in the Soviet Union until 1988. It was a reign of fear, paranoia, and oppression. Stalin's name is a grim reminder of what happens when control goes unchecked. It's a lesson in history that, unfortunately, the masses still never learn.
The moral to be drawn from this dangerous nightmare situation is a simple one. Don't let it happen. It depends on you.
This is the world we live in today, where freedom of speech is controlled, manipulated, and silenced in the name of protecting narratives. And with the digital age, further showcases the problems with technology, such as artificial intelligence being able to censor what we say other than human overseers. And just like in Metal Gear Solid, those who attempt to uncover the truth or question the narrative are hunted, censored, and erased from the conversation.
Everything that Solid has feared 5 years ago, it's all come to pass.
The Patriots are trying to protect their power, their own interests, by controlling the digital flow of information.
What about you, Jack? What's it going to be? Loyalty to your country or loyalty to me? Your country or your old mentor? The mission or your beliefs? Your duty to your unit or your personal feelings?
In MGS3, the boss is often quoted saying loyalty to the end, and claiming that she is loyal to her purpose. Even if that means betraying yourself, so be it. This encapsulates the contradiction of freedom as presented in the series. You're free to act, but only within the parameters set by those in power. The boss is the perfect example of this. She unofficially became the first American woman in space. The boss's legendary exploits would be censored by her own government. History would never know what she did. She died loyal to her cause, and in doing so, gave up her free speech and free will.
The authorities in Washington knew that in order to prove its innocence, they'd have to get rid of the boss, and that one of their own would have to do the job. The public couldn't be allowed to find out about it. Not ever. This, they concluded, would be the best way to keep the whole thing under wraps.
That name Paz mentioned at the end, Cipher, it's a code. It means empty. It also means...
zero.
A world of electronic intelligence, built on codes. And at the center of it all, a zero.
Big Boss's dream about a heaven was never about absolute freedom. It was about a world free from control. But even that dream was manipulated and turned into a lie. In our reality, freedom often acts as the ultimate illusion. A comforting facade designed to pacify populations whilst real decisions take place behind closed doors. Big Boss fought for autonomy and gave a voice to the voiceless across countless battlefields. He saved victims of war, individuals discarded by larger powers, such as Amanda and her band of revolutionaries in Peace Walker.
You're a regular Joan of Arc.
Nonsense. You're the hero here.
Characters like Grey Fox.
I remember now, Big Boss. Even then, you were the one who stopped me. I was raised by adults to be a tool of war, but you defeated me, watched over me.
And Sniper Wolf.
The governments of the world turned a blind eye to our misery. But then, he appeared. My hero. Saladin.
Victims of systems beyond their control found purpose through Big Boss's vision, yet his dream was constantly under siege. In Peace Walker, Cipher, Zero's shadowy organisation set the stage for the dangers of artificial intelligence as the tool for control. Hot Coldman's unmanned AI project aimed to take over Costa Rica, no doubt under Zero's command, using the concept of mutually assured destruction to enforce global stability. He believed only a machine intelligence could reliably execute such principles, trusting cold, digital logic over the human instinct to question or resist such actions.
Humans are incapable of destroying themselves.
But an AI wouldn't hesitate to push the button.
Precisely. Making it the one real deterrent.
People hesitate, lose their nerve. Isn't that why deterrence theory works in the first place?
No. Machines don't make mistakes. Only men do. That's why a fully automated, mechanized deterrent like Peace Walker is needed.
The terrifying reality of that concept feels closer to home today. Similar ideas have been proposed by governments, including the suggestion from China that artificial intelligence could one day be entrusted to make life-altering decisions. It's this chilling idea that strips away humanity's voice, reducing it to nothing more than obsolete noise, if AI decides what we can say and do. The Metal Gear series has always been a reflection of our world. It does challenge us to confront the uncomfortable truth. Freedom, as we understand it, is fragile and an illusion, easily shattered when control is placed in the hands of systems that prioritize efficiency over humanity. Big Boss's fight wasn't just for his dream, it was a fight for those forgotten by the system, a fight for people like us to raise our voices and reclaim our autonomy in a world increasingly dictated by artificial systems.
Every day, SIGINT's web covers a little bit more of the globe. Total information control. Big Brother Zero. And it'll happen before anyone even realizes. I don't like it. You're the big brother of the battlefield. You've earned a firm grip on the world's military power. But soon, Zero will have nations in his. But human will should only be handed down and nurtured by human hands. It can't be entrusted to the system.
You're all diamonds.
When it comes to freedom of speech and free will, one character in Metal Gear immediately springs to mind, Venom Snake. As Big Boss's proxy, Venom plays a role assigned to him by Cypher, unknowingly carrying out their plans to defeat XOF and Skullface, who threaten their narrative. His freedom of speech is controlled and reinforced by those around him, who convince him of his purpose. Venom's words are no longer his own. He speaks on behalf of Big Boss, his identity and voice shaped by the agenda of others, cancelling out his true freedom of speech. But this mirrors a disturbing reality in our own world, where people are often moulded into roles that serve the agendas of the elites, from celebrities to the media and nearly every corporate or government institution. Individuals can be made to blindly follow orders, never stopping to ask, is this right? Or why doesn't this add up? Take media outlets as an example. The Walt Disney Company owns major properties like ABC, ESPN, Marvel, Pixar and Lucasfilm, giving it unparalleled influence over global entertainment and information narratives. It controls children's programming and has faced accusations of shaping cultural and political narratives, even participating in wartime propaganda under the guise of cartoons. Disney's evolution highlights how easily companies can sway public opinion. In its early years, Disney was seen as a producer of content aligned with traditional conservative values, films like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and Cinderella, all of which emphasise traditional family values, rigid gender roles, and morality tales. Princesses were portrayed as damsels in distress, waiting for male heroes to save them. Now fast forward to today and Disney content reflects a very different narrative. The company has embraced progressive themes such as the LGBTQ+ representation in films like Finding Dory, Onward, and Eternals. While some applaud these changes as a sign of cultural progress, others see them as calculated moves to maintain relevance and appeal to the shifting societal norms. Early Disney films were accused of promoting conservative ideals through traditional family betrayals and historical revisionism, as seen in Pocahontas. Now, Disney faces accusations of pandering to progressive audiences, crafting content that aligns with current trends rather than genuine storytelling. The point here is how easily companies, and by extension, those in power, can shape your perception. Whenever through traditional family values or progressive narratives, the underlying message is clear. Major corporations like Disney hold immense power to influence what we see and hear, and ultimately believe. Profoundly, what Metal Gear Solid 2 tells us in the AI conversation, that some of our ideas might not even be of our own, but in fact influenced by something else.
I'll decide for myself what to believe and what to pass on.
But is that even your own idea?
Or something Snake told you?
That's the proof of your incompetence right there. You lack the qualifications to exercise free will.
It's not just Disney that holds immense power over what we see and hear. There are other massive media conglomerates shaping public opinion on an equally grand scale. Comcast, for instance, controls a staggering amount of media content, including NBC, Universal Pictures, and more. Paramount Global owns CBS, MTV, Nickelodeon, and a variety of news and entertainment outlets. Together, they have the power to influence perceptions across vastly different demographics. Then there's Rupert Murdoch's empire, wielding significant influence through News Corps. This includes Fox News, The Times, The Sun, and numerous other major outlets. Murdoch's history of using media to shape public opinion is well documented, especially in regions like the UK, the US, and Australia. But here's where it gets strange. Despite being owned by separate wealthy entities, these companies often echo the same narratives, different channels, different voices, but they're all delivering the same script, almost as if they're under control by one organisation. Either that or they're all on the same script.
We are concerned about trouble and trend and irresponsible, one-sided news stories playing
in our country.
Plague of biased and
False news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publicly are true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Politics, the military, the economy, they control it all. They even choose who becomes president. Putting it simply, the Patriots rule this country.
Now, in Metal Gear Solid 4, artificial intelligence has spiraled completely out of control, dominating every aspect of life. The world has succumbed to the war economy, a system designed to perpetuate conflict for profit. At the very start of the game, before players even take control, they are bombarded with advertisements, a chilling glimpse into a dystopian reality where war isn't just normalised but embraced as the status quo. It's a narrative decided by those in power, carefully crafted and sold to the masses as the only way forward. What makes this so profound is how eerily close it feels to our world in the universe of Metal Gear Solid. The elites, the Patriots, shape every facet of existence. They don't just manipulate speech, they control autonomy, politics, economics, and even the very thoughts of individuals, all working behind the scenes to decide the future without anyone's consent. If it's not war destroying lives in conflict zones, it's the suffocating cost of living, stricter censorship laws, and the illusions of freedom of choice. It's a commentary that feels less like fiction and more like a mirror. The Patriots' control extends even to the civilian level, using nanotechnology to silence and dissent and enforce obedience. Consider the nickname the La Li Lu Li Lo, a chilling reminder of this power. Those who are under the Patriots' influence are physically incapable of uttering the name, quote-unquote, the Patriots. Their nanomachines override their free will, forcing them to use the code name instead.
No, I was set in by the Lali Lule Lo, just like you.
What? So they couldn't use their weapons.
And the Patriots are behind this.
Lalilulelo? What are you talking about?
Never mind.
So this just raises a haunting questions about the characters in MGS4. Were some of them desperately trying to speak the truth but physically censored by their own bodies due to the nanomachines? Were their voices stolen before the words could even form? It's an unimaginable violation. And just how deeply the Patriots control their subjects down to their DNA and neural pathways. MGS4 is a warning to us all. It paints a picture of a world where once again unchecked power, big tech and corporate overlords dictate our future, while we as the public passively consume trivial distractions.
In the current digitized world, trivial information is accumulating every second, preserved in all its triteness, never fading, always accessible.
Rumors about petty issues, misinterpretations, slander.
All this junk data, preserved in an unfiltered state, growing at an alarming rate.
The Patriots' AI, for all its malevolence and authoritarian control, presents a chilling argument that isn't entirely unfounded. In a digitized world, there is an overwhelming overflow of information. Much of it, as the AI implies, is trivial junk, endless streams of meaningless distractions that don't serve the public good. And alongside this noise, false narratives and alternative facts often muddy the waters, making it harder than ever to discern what's real. But here's where things get interesting. The AI's greatest fear isn't the overflow of triviality, it's the flood of truth.
Not even natural selection can take place here. The world is being engulfed in truth.
In the digital age, where information is shared instantaneously, the world is being consumed by truth. Secrets are harder to keep, lies are harder to protect, surveillance works both ways, and the tools once used to control narratives can now expose the very corruption they sought to hide. The year 2024 feels like the year of reckoning, the year of truth.
All of these big dick deviants is all catching hell in 2024. It's up for all of them. It don't matter if you Diddy or whoever you is. TG Jakes, any of them. All lies will be exposed. That's all. And anyone who takes that the wrong way, know why they take it the wrong way. The truth is the light.
And they have no one of these.
Amen, amen.
The Patriots who sought to control the public by means of manipulating individuals in the series openly admit to Raiden in Metal Gear Solid 2 that he is the perfect example of how they can stage events and craft narratives to alter the course of history to suit their agendas. Raiden, understandably questioning what is real, struggles with the truth. Solid Snake, however, reminds him that while no one truly knows who they are, we at least have the freedom to decide what we want to be.
You can find your own name and your own future. Decide for myself, and whatever you choose will be you.
And with the magic of the digital age, gives us the ability to do so. As we now enter 2025, the warnings from MGS2 and MGS4 feel more relevant than ever. There's no denying that modern events often mirror the same manipulation and control seen in the series. Governments, corporations, and media outlets craft narratives and shape public perception, while the masses are left consuming their version of reality. The question becomes, will we fight back for our truth, or will we remain silent as our freedoms slip away? MGS4 shows us the dangers of a society entangled in digital enslavement, in distorted realities and dangerous levels of information control. The idea of unplugging from such a system, cutting off the very thing that's causing confusion, raises valid questions. Should we shut down the Patriots? And how far will you go to protect your freedom of speech? Will you remove the tape off your mouth and stand for your truth? Or will you stay silent and watch the world end, not with a bang, but with a whimper? If you made it this far, thank you for watching. We've touched up on some heavy topics and I'd say this is a mission complete. And going into 2025, it's going to be interesting to see how things unfold, especially with Delta on the horizon. You guys know the drill. Get in the comments and share your thoughts and feelings about freedom of speech, censorship, and how it impacts you personally. Don't forget to drop a like, and if you're new here, subscribe to an MGS channel you probably never heard of. Thank you all so much for watching. Until we meet again.